Check, 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 check,
Check, check, check.
Uh, Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out OTheAnthem.com. It's where you can find everything Oh The Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/OTheAnthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/OTheAnthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheap.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at Oh The Anthem on all your social networks. Well, yeah, and as Corey said, we hit 150,000 deaths. Do you want to talk about the one very important death, though, that happened this week?
Yeah, I mean, you know, and much to, I don't relish any part of this, but Herman Cain certainly seemed to have a very karmic end, given how much he was pushing the idea that this is a hoax and there will be no mass at the Trump rally, and then apparently he got sick at the Trump Tulsa rally, and he is, what was he, like 74 years old or something like that?
I think he's about the same age as Trump. So
yeah, and had just survived some very serious form of cancer.
Yep, cancer didn't kill him.
No.
COVID did.
Yeah, and pretty quickly, too.
Yep.
There seems to be story, Chuck Woolery had a tweet that Trump retweeted where he was just like, it's a hoax, and Fauci and the WHO and everyone's just trying to get implants or, microchips implanted in us, and then his son gets it the next day, and he's like, this is really serious, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make light of it,
and deleted the tweet, by the way.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people just get it finally hit somebody that they know, and then it's a real thing,
I do not understand, I will never understand Americans' inability to put themselves in another person's shoes unless it's someone they personally know.
Right.
This is absolutely a hoax. And then you see, my sister got it.
Well, this is
now it's serious.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening. I hope all the yellow sun is empowering you today. Today I want to talk to you about what is good in the name of Superman. We all have felt the power within us as the rays of the sun have allowed us great blessings. But there's the evil afoot, and no, it's not from the Luthers, not from the Brainiacs, and certainly not the Zards. No, the evil I must tell of you today is a lack of knowledge, an evil that can be eradicated with the help of your tithings. I recently walked the streets not far from here and encountered something I feel you need to know about. There was a young boy, maybe 13 years of age, who went to take his cellular phone out of his pocket. Well, his hand slipped and the phone went flying and plummeted to the ground below us. And that child, in a moment of rage, screamed out, "Super damn it!" I know. It shocked me too. So I approached the lad and I said unto him, "Why do you curse the name of our hero in a moment like this?" He replied, "I was upset, and I did not mean no offense, Pastor Phineas Bobowski." I then told him the story I plan to tell you now. I know I tell you that earthly possessions don't mean much in the afterlife. I mean, Kal-El only made his journey to Earth with what later became his cape after all. A letter from Jimmy Olsen to the Daily Planet. For he loved her so much, her breath now escaped in the afterworld upon her. Superman with a bellow held Lois in his arms. Then in a moment of crisis flew upward toward his father. Before encircling against the rotation of the earth, he turned and turned until the earth spun backwards, reversing time and saving the life of Lois Lane. In Kal-El's name we pray. The story is about doing things bigger than yourself and spreading the message to a backwards world, which is why I would like to introduce you to the Steel Initiative. The Steel Initiative is a $50 million project that this fellowship will undertake with your contributions. Much like the child dam in the name of our hero aloud, there are many people who in this world who have no clue who Superman is or what he can do for you, and we aim to spread that message all across the globe. If you are a new viewer, I say welcome. And most of the gospel I look to spread can be found in my books. Laser Beam Sight, 27 Ways Superman Helped Me See the Light. Alien Ways, the guide to personal fulfillment through Superman. And Where Do I Pray When All the Phone Booths Are Full? The message is clear throughout all of my tithings. If you have faith in Superman, if you lavish your son upon us, then Superman will lavish that son back on you in unbelievable ways. If you believe enough, if you send your son to us, you will find that son come back to you. The sun we seek today is for the Steel Initiative. And if everyone were to donate what they could, if it were $100 or $500 or even a paltry $1,000, we could be able to spread the message of Superman to the entire globe. The Steel Initiative is a 3-part plan with the first step to buy a $20 million plane. This plane with seating for 15 and filled with all the necessities to spread the word of Superman around the world. The second part is for the purchase of a new $10 million parsonage in Los Angeles that will serve as our base of operations for the church on the West Coast. And the third part is all the remaining money will be used for operation costs so we can...
Okay, so anyway, back to... Speaking of stupid Americans...
Hello.
So, a survey was completed and was published, I suppose, this week. That basically says we're all doomed and idiocracy is coming true literally before your eyes.
Yes.
And I've pulled up the terms of this survey. Well, here's some interesting things that got pointed out as far as I was concerned. Do you know that... the highest paid public employee in more than half of the states is the football coach of the state college. Mm-hmm. That's it. I mean, I had heard that, and I was like, okay, that's got to be bullshit. But then did a little fact check. Actually true. Yeah. Actually true.
Yeah.
And the average American spends 302 minutes a day watching television. 75% of young adults, meaning college-educated people, cannot find Israel on a map of the Middle East. But
I liked that 10% of college graduates thought that Judge Judy was a member of the Supreme Court.
Yes. Less than 20% knew what the Emancipation Proclamation was.
Yeah. Which is actually right in line with the Trump thing from like South Carolina or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't know Franklin Roosevelt was the
only thing that it does make me question is like maybe they asked these questions in such a way that people didn't... Like, you know, like when you watch Jaywalking, when Jay Leno was on TV?
You always wonder how he's...
Well, no, the questions would oftentimes be like, you know, like, what is the First Amendment? And then you just see somebody go like, This week on the The Anthem podcast, the NRA is in trouble with the state of New York. There was a big explosion in Lebanon, and it's not just the firework factory that went up, but we'll get all into that. There is a new Biden power ranking as we anxiously await who the second in command will be. We'll get into that, plus a surprise pick for you guys. In COVID news, 5 million cases in the U.S., 160,000 deaths. In California, having real trouble getting their numbers straight. And we'll finish up talking about Trump because there is a whole lot there to talk about. And we won't miss a beat coming up right now on the Oh the Anthem podcast. The National should be in the lost column. This is Corin. This is the Oh the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 331 of the Oh the Anthem podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening on your podcatcher of choice. The easiest way, anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem. Takes you to Apple, takes you to Spotify, takes you to wherever you listen to your podcast. We don't want to judge. We want to make it easy for everybody. So go there and enjoy it at your leisure.
And, of course, if you're watching live, you're probably watching on Facebook.com/Oh the Anthem or over on YouTube, Twitch, or on Periscope, which is how you get there via Twitter. And you can watch us live on every Monday night via any of those platforms. And, of course, you can join us via our Discord channel. If you make a comment or ask a question in any of those formats, it'll pop up here in the Discord, or join our Discord, and you can chat with us all week long in between the shows.
Indeed, indeed.
All right, so jumping up off the top, let's just get right into it. Our first topic, I was going to say I was a supporter of this organization, and the fact of the matter is I was actually a card-carrying member of this organization for
that's right.
years.
You talked about this before.
I used to be very conservative, and even now, I mean, I've been basically everything, but I think this was during my libertarian years. Back before we knew that we had to look into the organizations that we gave money to, I guess. But that's why we're here today, aren't we?
Exactly. So for people who listen to podcasts, and I would assume you are one of them because you're listening to this right now, there is a great podcast you need to check out. It's called Gangster Capitalism, and their most recent season was breaking down the NRA. And I have to imagine that somebody at the New York Attorney General's office was listening to it as well as I was, because charges basically came down that New York is investigating whether or not the NRA can still operate as a nonprofit in New York State, which would be problematic for the NRA in a lot of different ways. But in addition to everything, this is a legal fight that the NRA has to fight on top of a lot of other issues that are going on sort of behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Yeah, and I was going to say, so there has been some instability within the NRA anyway. I think you made a great metaphor, which I don't think we should repeat just because I'm not trying to make enemies with people here in Los Angeles. But the leader of an organization died.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a prophet. Maybe he's not.
Right.
And the second in command basically has to do what is necessary to concentrate power amongst themselves.
Right.
That's what Wayne LaPierre has been doing.
Yeah, Wayne LaPierre has done a lot like this untold person who, after the death of the prophet-like figure, went up on stage and said that the body became a detriment to the prophet-like figure, and he had to expel himself of it. But his spirit lives on. But in the meantime, I'm going to run everything, and I'm going to lock my wife away in Riverside, California, never to be seen again.
Much like the NRA, gold everything. Just so much gold and so many very sharp
and bases,
suits.
Too, on top of that. Gold and bases.
Oh, man. They have a lot.
Yeah.
I'm formulating a conspiracy theory. But nonetheless.
Somebody tells me I won't lead Tucker Carlson. It's too
probably not.
too
no.
close to the chest.
They both like bow ties. It's not gonna go well for you.
Needless to say, basically what had been happening here in the NRA for a little while is that when you have a nonprofit or not-for-profit, you can only have so much go to the overhead, to the paying of the executive board, that sort of thing. And for people who are trying to make a quick buck, like the people who are working in the NRA, that's not enough money.
Now, wait. Let's be clear, though.
Yes.
we're not saying you have to work for minimum wage to be the CEO of a nonprofit.
If you're the president of the NRA, I think you can make a very substantial, like $80,000 a year, like for a not-for-profit. That's a pretty.
I think the number. I want to say that
I think it's higher, but
the limit is a percentage of the money you take in. That's the limit, and Wayne LaPierre does take less.
Yes.
But he takes less because of the reason we're about to talk about.
So basically, what the gangster capitalism season had most recently been digging up was the NRA's relationship with their marketing company, which was Alexander McQueen. And basically, there's a whole bunch of family strife going on because one of the members of Alexander McQueen is like married to Wayne LaPierre's sister. I can't remember all the details, but there's a family issue going on here at the top, which has caused a friction and a break and caused all this stuff to get out.
Those are the best things because it's when the infighting happens that it's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's some documents, Washington Post, that might be interesting to you. And it's one of those cut off your nose to spite your face situations. It's
right.
Like, dude, you are also taking money. Why would you want to draw any attention to this? Yeah. All right.
Well, so, I mean, like a lot of it is just that basically when you're a not-for-profit, you have to report how you spend your money. But when you are spending it on marketing costs, you don't have to itemize what you're spending it on.
And it's not just marketing. There are bucket categories that you can be like, okay, so I don't want this guy to have to report to me every dollar that's spent. You're spending money on marketing for the NRA. Great. Travel is not one of those things. Right. Travel needs to specifically be tied to a reason to go and a person who's going and how they got there. Funny thing is, there's a way around that apparently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so much of the allegations of wrongdoing by the NRA involve the NRA basically bought a house for Wayne LaPierre.
Also something you have to report.
Yeah. There's these, $1 million trips to Bermuda and, places of the like. Obviously, there's like hunting trips that go on as well.
No, wait, Corey.
To which some of that they would probably argue is like part of the operation cost for the NRA TV stuff that they do. Because like if they have a picture of Wayne with a gun out in the middle of
and
the
they put
safari,
it on his Instagram, that's
they
marketing.
Can spend $200 million on this whole thing as long as they got that picture at the end of it. That's how it works. Yeah. But yeah, this whole thing is. Crazy. I mean, illegal. Like, just generally speaking, like, is obviously like not the way that a charitable organization should be run. So,
and agreed, the morality of it is terrible.
Yeah.
And I think we've discussed before. I don't donate to Susan G. Komen. They've had the same allegations that like 90% of the money that's donated to them goes to raise more money, not to actual research.
Right.
The ALS Ice Bucket Challenge that was a few years ago, people were saying, don't donate to these organizations. There's a specific group that is like, we spend 95% of it on research.
Right.
That's why you don't know who we are. But that's where we should direct donations at.
And in the past, I feel like I've said about PETA, like I would rather donate my money elsewhere if I'm trying to donate it for the cause of animal cruelty or anything, preventing animal cruelty, not pro animal. Obviously,
good clarification. That's why you go to the NRA.
I didn't want PETA to be plagued as the animal cruelty group. But I mean, like it's just I feel like your dollar goes more to different organizations.
Yeah,
and right now the NRA, until. It's an innocent until proven guilty situation, but this is a pretty huge amount of evidence being laid upon them, of which they haven't really had any response to. And I need to hear something from them before I'm ready to throw in the book on them. But it's not looking good for them being a charitable organization going forward.
Well, and that is the problem. Like morality aside, no one is accusing, again, PETA, Susan G. Komen, any of these organizations of not spending the money correctly.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the difference. And I guess so that begs the question, what is the impact of the outcome of this lawsuit in New York? And why is it so important?
Well, so by my understanding, if I remember correctly, a lot of states sort of run their charity organizations or the validation of whether or not an organization can be considered a charity based off of the acceptance of them in other states. So It's the type of thing that you wouldn't be in trouble unless you're in trouble in one state, and then it can all of a sudden become a lot of states that become. So if they lose their ability to operate as a nonprofit in New York, then they also lose it in 25, 30 other states just because they lost it in one state.
Yeah.
So this one thing can be a very big detriment to them being able to operate going forward.
I think we've talked about before that some states like Texas, California, New York have such substantial state level organization.
Yeah.
Laws, and not a lot of states, not all states have that. It's just like California could be its own country because almost nearly every federal law has a California law that is its peer.
Yeah.
Texas is very much the same way. When it comes to finances, New York is very much the same way.
Right.
Because so much financial work is done there. And a state like Massachusetts, Maryland, North Dakota, that doesn't have the money to say, we're going to spend this much on regulation of finances, says, well, if New York, who we know spends that money, says
who
you're good,
knows what's up,
we're going to accept that too.
Yeah.
And then when you have California or Texas, why are we going to spend the money when New York already spent the money to check you out?
Yeah.
And New York, by the same token, if California's checked you out, well, they already spent the money, so you're good. But if you lose it in one of those places, that can become problematic.
Yeah, and going forward, the concern here would be whether or not the NRA is going to have the money to properly fight or represent themselves in court here, because so much of the allegations that is going on about the corruption also is raising a portrait of a organization that is running on no money, like is basically trying to launder all this money into homes and clothes and trips and stuff like that because they're about to be out of money in general. So
and it's getting a little pyramid scheming where it's like, if we don't have money coming in, we cannot function.
Right.
This is it's not a pyramid, it's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Where you only keep operating so long as you have stuff coming in, and then eventually it falls apart and somebody runs to Bermuda. Wait, where did you say that they took a trip to? Was it?
Oh, I can't remember exactly.
I think it was Bermuda.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe that was a practice run. Like, how much can we get going to Bermuda? But yeah, it just gets to the point where these organizations, and I guess it's just corruption in general. I go back to the same thing I think I've said before. Bad education, the example that they use now, where he's like starts out with a slice of pizza and it's a bagel, and next thing you know, you buy Corvette, and it's your house, and then it's vacations, and you're just. It builds and builds and builds, and you don't realize how much it is until someone starkly puts it in front of you, like the podcast that broke it down and showed how many millions it actually is.
See, but I mean, like that's the problem is that I don't think that we're in a slice of pizza here, a coffee there situation because you know the some of these allegations which are already out there and you can find easily. For instance, Google Wayne LaPierre Beverly Hills. Like, you know, fashion trip, basically, or whatever.
Yeah.
You'll find a story about how he spent, you know, $500,000 basically on expensive clothes when he was in Beverly Hills at Rodeo Drive. And all of that money went back to Alexander McQueen, which paid
all the
for
receipts went to Alexander.
Right, because, you know, he needs to wear a suit that he's going to wear at the NRA annual convention. And that's, you know, that's for business attire. So
he's
obviously.
Not buying off the rack.
I mean, like, he can't look like an idiot. Like. If it's not Brooks Brothers, then all the people with the, you know, cut off sleeve shirts and the locker up sweatshirts are gonna look at him funny. So. And
by the way, if you guys don't know what Wayne LaPierre looks like, if there's a guy who could buy off the rack, it's Wayne LaPierre. He's basically a square. His body is basically just a square, and it's the perfect model for a business suit. It's just like it perfectly hangs off his shoulders.
He's kind of like, so people who've never seen him before, he's kind of like Bizarro Rod Rosenstein.
Yes.
Like he's kind of like the evil twin version of Rod Rosenstein.
The hair hasn't gone back quite so far.
Yeah.
It's still a little forward.
Yeah, but he looks more dastardly. Like he's got like a
which is saying something for Rod. If you're the evil.
Well, I mean, like Rod Rosenstein looks like the most unassuming guy, like.
But he is actually evil, and then you get the evil version of him, and maybe it's good. Wait, maybe we've judged this all wrong. Maybe the one
have we
who
seen
looks
them in the
innocent.
same place at the same time? Is this possible? Are they the same person? Is this?
Who knows?
Is Wayne LaPierre / Rod Rosenstein really busy?
Well, they are.
Is this how fucking internet conspiracies start? I
Yes,
just throw it on a
we've
podcast.
just started one, I think. But yeah,
according to a host on a podcast, they're the same people.
they're both conservatives. They
Yeah.
both like their guns.
Yeah.
And they've never
Both
been in the
live
same
in the
room.
general area of DC.
Yeah, never been in the same room at the same time.
Yeah, I gotta look into this. It's an OTA investigative report coming up.
All right, now how can we make this a 501c4 so we can fly you to DC and have somebody else pay for it?
Let's be honest. I ain't getting on a fucking plane.
Yeah, we'll get to your.
I don't care how much money laundering we do. I'm not getting on a plane.
We'll get to your update on COVID in just a bit. Before we do that, though, a big story happened, and here's the thing: time has no meaning. I don't want to spoil Corey's Palm Springs review, which everyone should check out.
Yeah.
And I have one coming this week for Palm Springs. But COVID quarantine is a bit like Palm Springs. It's just always today. There's a tomorrow going to be a lot like today. And there was a yesterday, a lot like today.
Yeah.
So at some point last week, was it Tuesday?
I think we woke up on Tuesday too.
And it had happened.
Yeah. If I remember correctly. But the explosion in Beirut of basically, we know that there were fireworks being held in that location, and that's sort of like what set it off, and then the explosion came from some combination of that. I mean, obviously, Trump put out some sort of, I don't know if it's a terrorist attack or not, which was very, like, I haven't seen anything confirming or denying that, but it seemed like a kind of aggressive thing to tweet out when nobody knew anything.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it was a Middle Eastern country, and there was an explosion. I think the only thing he knows about Beirut, Lebanon, is that at one point when he was actually richer than he is now, there was also an explosion in Beirut, Lebanon, and Americans were impacted by that in some way. But since that's all he knows, it's natural to assume. But for those of you who may not have seen the news, I don't know how you avoided it. There was an explosion at the port of Beirut in Beirut, Lebanon. If you're unfamiliar where that is, let me give you some geographical coordinates. If you can picture in your mind where the Mediterranean Sea meets the Red Sea. That is a country called Egypt. Hopefully you know where that is. And then just north of that junction is Israel, which is a pretty familiar city, or a pretty familiar country. Just north of that is a country called Syria, which we've become way more familiar with since the battle against ISIL, however you want to call it. To the east is Jordan, and then from there, Iraq. And then, but between Syria and Israel is this sliver of a country right up against the coast. That is Lebanon.
Yes.
And it's infamous because we sent American troops into Lebanon during the Civil War in the 80s. And I almost said Mujahideen. It's not the Mujahideen. It's the group that is now part of the Palestinian government. They've made the transition from acknowledged terror, Hamas.
Yeah.
Hamas, which was a terrorist group, but now has been brought into the government process. So it now operates as part of the government. Funny. It's. I can see again. One of the things that we were talking about before the show started was just about how bringing people. You're outside the process, and how like there's all this stuff going on outside. But realistically, a lot of the violence stopped by just being like, "Hey, do you want to come? Just have a say in what we're doing."
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then they put up electors. They elected some people, and now it's basically like, I mean, they're still on categories of terrorist groups, but that's because nobody west of the Mediterranean has any idea what's going on in the area. But nonetheless, Hamas blew up a bomb at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. 4 American Marines died, and then we basically pulled out of Beirut because Ronald Reagan only fights battles he can win, like against the country of Grenada. If you know where that is, there's no way I can explain it to you if you don't know where it is. It's a very small island that had no military that we invaded for reasons that were unclear, most likely because we had to pull out of Lebanon.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so there is a port there, Beirut. There was a fireworks storage facility there. And I'm going to say I'm not an expert on Lebanon, but I do know some people who are from Lebanon. And my understanding of the situation is there has been a general upheaval, a second Arab Spring or the impacts of the Arab Spring in Lebanon. And
they're going against the government that is just overall super corrupt.
Yeah.
And the way that I put it to Corey is, let's say that there was a tax at the port of Beirut and said, if you're bringing in something dangerous, we're going to tax you 10% of the value so that we can keep up on safety precautions. And then they pocket the money and they don't do anything about safety precautions. And then the one place where you would really want safety precautions, like, say, a fireworks factory,
Right.
explodes because they haven't been improving the safety precautions. And for those of you who are watching the video on YouTube, you can see beside me over here that there is a side-by-side of an image of what the port looked like before and what the port looks like now. And I've been making this argument that humans have an inability to mentally see big pictures and big numbers. We can't comprehend big things. And I couldn't find it, but I think I shared it to you earlier this week. If we put this area over Los Angeles,
Right.
what the impact would be.
Like at the center of the blast was at Santa Monica.
At the Santa Monica Pier, windows would have been blown out for you in downtown LA because we face west here.
Right.
So the windows would have been blown out here. And then places like Koreatown would have had serious damage to buildings. And then places even further west like Beverly Hills would have been flattened. And just to think about that scale, and again, for those of you in Maryland, you have no concept of really what that is. If you've been in downtown Baltimore, though, imagine that.
It'd be like if, if there was an explosion at the Inner Harbor and in Cockeysville, the windows blew out.
That is essentially how far. I mean, imagine just like everything of Charles Street flattened.
Yeah.
All the way up to that light, the light that's at the county city line.
Yeah.
That light I hate because I think we caught it every single time we went through. But like, basically, that's where building damage turns into blown out windows.
Right.
And we just have no way to conceptualize how much that is. And surprisingly few people died. Still, the death count is not really known. But
the injuries are significant, though. And
injuries are significant. Yeah. And it's basically shining a light on the fact that this government is not somewhat corrupt. It's very corrupt.
Yeah.
And they've been taking a lot of money. So a follow-up to that story was today. And that was that the government, and by government I don't mean the president or the head of the parliament or a few guys in the cabinet, but essentially the leader of Lebanon, who's now in the picture over here next to me, came forward and was like, so we're all going to step down.
Yeah.
The entire government stepping down because essentially they were worried, I think, about one, a revolution happening, like what has happened in Arab Spring and other places. But also they were worried about being removed because by law, if you're removed, you can't run again. And now what they want to do is to step down so they can run again.
Right.
And I think this is going to be a continuing story because the stepping down seems like one thing to me that's like, how did you put it in a previous episode, like a pressure valve. You're looking to like let off just enough pressure so that the thing doesn't blow.
Yeah.
But hoping that, in 6 months we'll hold elections. Nobody will remember. They'll elect us again and we'll be back in power and be corrupt again. And it'll remains to see. Also, old Syria had a big influence in Lebanon. Israel tried to have a big influence in Lebanon. So now there's a power vacuum, and how's that going to play? And will Hamas come back? Will Syria be there? Will Iran come in? And there's just a lot of stability issues.
Well, like I was saying earlier, I think this will make a really compelling New Yorker long read in in a short period of time.
And you know what could really help us in this situation?
What's that?
A leader in the White House who would be a leader on the global stage to step forward and say things like, we stand with the people of Lebanon. We are sending aid, any aid that we can. And, literally anything other than we're not sure if it's a terrorist attack or not, which I think is all he said thus far.
Boy, mister, where do we get one of those?
Canada's got a pretty good one. Can we borrow theirs? Mexico's not doing too bad. I don't
know how well the Trudeaus would run in the States.
That name sounds pretty foreign to me. I'm not sure it's going to be good.
It's one of those. It works in Canada. It doesn't really work here. It doesn't really play south of the border.
Unfortunately not. So we're left in the situation where instead we have two 70-year-old white guys running against each other. And the big political story of this election isn't Bernie versus Biden. It's not the close race heading into the convention. It's which 70-year-old man are you going to vote for? And currently right now, which person of color, likely, which woman of color is one of the 70-year-old white men going to choose?
Yeah. I think Trump's sticking with Pence. I feel like if there was a move, Trump would have done that already.
And just to be clear, the white man in the image next to Corey is Biden, not to be confused with the other old white men, which would be Trump and Pence, literally everyone else in this election.
I mean, that basically looks like Pence there.
The
hair is awfully white.
As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, damn, that looks like Pence. It doesn't look like Biden.
Though there has been sort of like backroom chatter about whether or not Trump gets rid of Pence and replaces him with I think Nikki Haley was on the list of like people that might be Trump running mates if they got rid of Pence, but I don't see what the point is at this point.
And coming into now would be the time right before the convention, or pull the Nixon and just dump him right after you inaugurate, ask him to step down and bring somebody else in.
Yeah, you could do it that way.
Yeah. But then you got to get the Senate to confirm him.
Yeah. Good luck. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. I know. I ruined it for you.
Hurts.
I ruined it for you. You were thinking about how you get a Democratic Senate, and then I ruined it for you. How does it feel? Wonderful. Great. All right. So
get back to the deep stakes.
We wanted to touch on this because we were hoping that we would actually be able to say, Biden picked somebody today, but that's not how it works. So instead, what we're doing is our one final run at this, hopefully, where the running mate power rankings have basically been brought down to 5 names. Missing on this list is Elizabeth Warren, which was my top choice a couple weeks ago when we first talked about this. But basically where we sit right now is Karen Bass at 5, Tammy Duckworth at 4, fucking Gretchen Whitmer at 3. I was like, what is her first name? Susan Rice at 2, and Kamala Harris at 1. So Kamala seems to be the chosen one at this point. Like every list I see, like basically says like, well, if it's not Kamala Harris, it'll probably, like. Yeah,
apparently
there's a lot of like assumptions that she's in the pole position at the moment.
She apparently has made a very public trip to Delaware, but she also may have made another private trip to Delaware.
Yeah.
And apparently there have been meetings both in D.C. and in California with members of the his committee to pick someone.
And I mean, most of, like what is that the seriousness of a candidate is going to depend on whether or not Joe actually wants to like meet them in person.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't get to the point where you actually get to meet the candidate, then you're not that serious of a choice, I would say. So, I mean, that adds some to, like we've heard about Harris meeting, we've heard about Whitmer meeting. I think there's been conversations with Bass, but I don't know if there's ever been a face-to-face.
So again, she had a meeting with the committee.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the name of the guy who is heading the committee.
But I mean, if you're in D.C., it's not that hard to sneak away to Delaware. So
yeah. I mean, Joe did it every single day.
Yeah.
So, and not sneak away. He rode the train home to Delaware every single day. Sorry, but I think
snuck away on the Excella.
The interesting,
like a snake in the night.
The interesting thing to me is, we've heard a lot about him moving in a direction, and I forgot to mention on our list here, but there was an announcement today from 30, I think, black leaders who said it needs to be a person of color. It needs to be not just a woman, but a woman of color, preferably a black or brown woman who you nominate. You need to now at this time step up and do the brave thing, and to do anything else is shirking responsibility.
Yeah,
but. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gretchen Whitmer, though, is a white woman.
To the best of my understanding, yes.
I think so. So I see the list of 5. There are 4 women of color here. Why is Warren not... Where happened? Where did she fall off this list?
I mean, something tells me that Biden's aim at this point, he's trying to think of this decision strategically.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about... who do I pick that might necessarily be the best for the ideal form of government we have going forward, but what gives me the most opportunities to win as many states as humanly possible? So I think that there's while we've sort of argued there's sort of like a token nature of the way that this process has played out and the idea of floating potential black women as VP, even though Biden had said it's going to be a woman.
A woman, yeah.
The sort of like, it just feels so much like people are trying to decide on who they want based off of the the qualities of the person rather than the quality of the work that the person has necessarily done.
Yeah.
And there's some incredibly every single one of these women on the list, I would say probably with Karen Bass being my least likely to pass on that way.
Yeah.
Are all worthy of being a presidential figure. I wouldn't worry about the country in their hands kind of thing. Just none of them really like. What I like about Elizabeth Warren is that she's so authentic. She can't help it. And people might not like her for her views, but you can't question how she gets to them. She's very logical and she's very smart. And the I've got a plan for that is great for somebody who is going to be the means by which you get legislative agendas from the executive branch to the Congress and to the Senate.
And
like you have to be the person who has the relationships on the Hill to make things work.
let's look back. Why did Obama pick Biden? Relationships on the Hill to get stuff done. Why did Bush pick Cheney? Relationships on the Hill to get stuff done. Clinton and Gore. I guess it wasn't so. Dan Quayle was a congressman at one point, I think, or senator.
Something like that. I think with Gore, he was a senator in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And was it Tennessee?
Yeah, it was Tennessee. And they wanted two Southern guys. That was
the other thing was, like Clinton was outside, Gore was inside.
Yeah.
Like, like the idea that you have to, and even when Obama ran, there was sort of like we got a black man on the ticket. We don't want to rock the boat here. So maybe we pick a white man to balance this out.
Or
let's not look at so many women because, it might be a little bit too much for the country to have a black man and a woman running on the same ticket. I don't think anyone really would have cared, but this is the type of like insider baseball speak that
they're doing,
that Democratic people in charge do all the time.
Also, he didn't have a lot of international experience, and Joe Biden has a lot of international experience from the Senate. But I go back immediately to Kennedy and LBJ.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you are going to be a controversial president. You need to pick somebody who is way different from you and can get stuff done on the Hill.
Yeah.
And LBJ was not a Northeastern Democrat.
No, indeed.
I would probably say he was a segregationalist when he started, and only did what he did because he was like, this is not my term. This is our slain president's term, and I'm going to finish what he started. So,
well, also I think LBJ, if nothing else, sort of had a very in tune sense of how he would be placed within history.
Yeah. Also,
and
he's good.
No, he was very good at that. I think he could read the room better than most.
Yeah.
Which was the basis for his success. But I would like to throw out one really
that I was going to say
the wall.
I wanted to get to because Warren not being on the list we discussed that.
Yeah.
But you have a really fitting pick.
Yeah.
By the standards that we have now set ourselves with these pick of five.
Yeah.
And I want to give you the floor so you can discuss and be judged solely on your own merits.
Okay. Just hang with me. I know that a good degree of the Democratic Party who hears me say this is going to argue that I'm way off base here.
They're going to react exactly how I did.
They're going to be very upset, but listen to my point. The best case scenario for this election is that we have a qualified woman who has tons of experience in Washington and is capable of taking over the job of the president on day one. And preferably somebody who isn't, 70 years old would be great. And also, whenever Trump does eventually leave office, because, if it's this year or 4 years from now, God forbid, we're going to have a serious conversation about how we bring this back together a little bit because it can't keep separating like it has. So in the honor of trying to do what old presidents used to do to divide or to bring together a divided country, I say that Joe Biden picked Condoleezza Rice as his running mate. There is
now for our younger listeners, they may not know who that is.
Well, you know what? I will tell this. If you don't, you should look into it because there's almost no woman in the history of the United States who's more qualified to be president for the amount of experience and the nature by which she went up the ranks. Now, Rob and other people in the Democratic caucus will say she's a war criminal.
Also a certified war criminal. Yes,
And-
yeah. She worked her way up in a government and then became a certified war criminal, just like her
Right.
boss. Yeah, but we've forgiven her boss.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw him at John Lewis's funeral.
They
but-
also decided that they weren't going to charge any of these people. So
Yeah, it was a-
clearly they were making some sort of determination that the war criminalistness of it all was that's kind of a weird word, but
Yeah,
it's kind of word
yeah.
salad going on there. But the legality of it was basically tied to decisions you were making as a head of state, and you sort of have some sort of qualified immunity from said decisions unless you go way over the line. And I think that was what we don't want to be the one defining the line right now, I think was the argument when Obama
Yeah.
came in.
I listened to a podcast today about tear gas and
Yeah.
how we can use it, even though it's a violation of the Geneva Convention, and how they wove this story through history on how it's like, well, listen, it doesn't really apply, and here's how. And then you're like, you understand how it's worse. You making that argument makes it worse. You're like, yeah, but legal.
Well, also the problem is that, like, you know, if you look into any of these arguments of like what's legal and illegal,
Yeah.
like it's like, you know, like, well, tear gas can't have a pin. If it has a pin in it, it's illegal. And it's just like, all right, so we'll design tear gas without a pin.
and that is essentially what they did.
Yeah.
And to the same token, I think there was a lot of like Obama's administration saying, do we really want to spend capital on pressuring this thing that is marginally a war crime, very clearly morally a war crime?
Yeah.
But listen, he had brown children in the Middle East he wanted to bomb too. So
Well, let me just paint this for you, because if the goal is Biden has to become president,
Yeah.
we can't do Trump again. There is going to have to be some sort of outreach that happens between Biden and the Democrats and the reasonable people who used to be Republicans who are now
Nothings?
feel like people without a party.
Yeah.
The Lincoln Project, I think, has illuminated the fact that there are a lot of people out there who have traditionally been Republican votes who are not happy with how Trump is going. And not only not happy with Trump, but unhappy with everyone who's sort of ridden in his wake, because it's, you know, they're doing ads that are taking on McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Cory Gardner, Ted Cruz,
Yeah.
Ben Sasse, all these people. Everyone's in the in the line of sight.
And Condoleezza Rice was a relatively liberal member of George Bush's.
And if you make the argument like, hey, listen, I want to bring this country together so badly that I am willing to have, as the person that I speak to most, somebody who I disagree with so fervently.
Yeah.
But we will have, I promise that we will have like really intense discussions about where we should be going together as a country. And I hope that the discussions that we have will help us bridge the divide between the other side before we even come up with a proposal. Like, we've already sort of like done the negotiation before we even need to bring it to the floor and alleviate some of the pressure that comes with public negotiation.
I mean, also, you put the pressure, if you don't take back the Senate, you put the pressure on the Senate to say, hey, we're bringing very moderate proposals here.
Yeah.
Are you really going to, you Republicans, are you really going to stand against this thing that my Republican vice president and I have negotiated
I mean,
out,
like,
basically?
you know, it would be a great opportunity for Condi Rice to rewrite her history a little bit.
Also, yeah.
And, you know, it's one of those, you know, McCain talked about it. When McCain was looking for his running mate, they went with Palin because they needed a real flashy pick.
Yeah.
Which was a mistake.
Also,
But-
somebody young and full of energy, because McCain
Yeah.
was not either
well,
of those
and
things.
the one who was going to get this close to being vice president was Joe Lieberman.
Yeah.
Who was a Democrat, who was also kind of in the McCain vibe of a very mavericky
Yeah.
member of their party.
Controversial choice for Gore the election before.
Yeah.
Because people were like,
He's too conservative.
not even really a Democrat. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So-
And the same thing was sort of rumored within McCain.
Yeah.
So, you know, I as much as I hate fucking Joe Lieberman, I don't think that apparently he was very popular with those two. So
Here's the problem, though. If you go with Condoleezza Rice or someone, I mean, honestly, Kamala Harris is just left of center. Joe is just left of center.
I mean, honestly speaking, you know, as much as the Kamala Harris stands out there are going to argue with me, there's not a whole lot of difference between her and Condi Rice. I mean, it's the difference
experience in
yeah.
the executive, where Condi has far more experience.
I mean, Kamala tries to play herself off as this huge progressive figure, but she's never had a vote that really crystallizes that with any kind of, like talk is cheap if everything you're doing is voting right in line with what the center left of the party is choosing to go
So
with.
that begs the question. Condi Rice, Kamala Harris, do you lose the left at the expense of trying to bring centrist Republicans in?
Well, the argument there is how many Democrats are we going to lose to pick up Republicans?
Right.
And is it worth it?
Yeah.
We had the conversation about Ted Yoho calling AOC a fucking bitch. He, in his mind, did the calculus. This is not going to hurt me. I'm going to raise more money from this than I will lose.
It's going to hurt me nationally, but people will forget. But at home, they will always remember that I called her a bitch on TV.
Yeah,
So.
and the highly Republican district that I work in is going to give me more money for doing that.
Yep.
And even though that's an awful thing to do to another person,
I don't think he cares about that.
I mean, like at a certain point, like we're talking about adult issues, and like this is gonna happen. I feel like there's some sort of way that if that came out, if it just came out tomorrow, like Condi Rice is the pick, then people would be so flabbergasted with the bipartisan nature of it that I think a lot of Democrats would get in line with we're trying to come up with a way to move forward. Trump can't even tell you why he wants to be reelected for president.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
He doesn't.
He
He can't give you 3 reasons why you should be reelected, other than the economy is going to be great again on the other side. And Biden is saying, "I'm literally making plans for us to fix this country," and there's no response to that from Trump. So, if you the idea being that if you brought in a Republican to fill the second spot, or somebody who is aligned with the Republican Party to fill that second spot, then maybe you would have a better chance of picking off Texas and North Carolina and Georgia and these other places where you're playing within the margins. You're looking promising, but a 1-point lead in Texas can easily evaporate, pretty quickly. So,
and does that create one party with the Republicans becoming the fringe?
Well, I mean,
right?
like I think it just sort of what it does more than anything is it's trying to align everything that isn't Trumpism together into one, like this is the country that we're having going forward.
We'll figure out our shit later. We're just getting rid of
when
you
the Republicans
for now.
crash and burn, they can figure out their shit.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm going to do this. I don't, at the end of the day, vice president, famously the least important position in America unless the president dies.
Well, and I wanted a quick retort to you though.
Yeah.
Do you get those same Republican voters with someone like Tammy Duckworth, where you can say, soldier, Purple Heart winner? She's actually relatively pro-gun, although she is like I am, where it's like, listen, I want you to have your guns. I just think maybe you should take like a couple of tests before we just start giving out guns. And maybe not everybody at Walmart can walk up and get one. Do you get the same bump from Republicans who are like looking for anyone to cling on to? And she's a soldier.
I mean, I don't think Tammy Duckworth hurts you. I think that, there's more of a concern that you're spiting the right side, the potential Republican voters who are willing to switch over, the more left you go.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So,
even if one thing about her
part of
appeals.
why Warren is not on the power rankings right now is because she's too far left for a moderate Republican to go, well, I can't wait until Elizabeth Warren is a heartbeat away from presidency. Like
a Hillary Warren ticket might actually work.
With the Republicans, Pence worked really great because he's a standard, generic, right off the factory line Republican.
I thought you were gonna say human being. Yeah.
He was designed in a lab at the GOP to be a Republican in some form of government. So he's just checked off that box. And that's all the Republicans needed. They needed just somebody who was, born of the same cloth.
If this crazy guy who we trust goes away, at least the guy behind him is a standard Republican and not Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
We can't have too much crazy on the same ticket.
Right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of too much crazy going on at one time, I guess, we're going to get into COVID news. And there's unfortunately no good news about coronavirus right now. As you can see here next to me, we have breached 5 million cases as of today. With this number that you see, the 161, is actually low. We're actually up at about 165,000 deaths now. And
it feels kind of morose to keep talking about the number of cases, the number of deaths. But the reason I really wanted to talk about it this week is because we are approaching a very, very important kind of it's not really a deadline, I guess. It's what would you call it?
A view into the future.
No, yeah, it's a number, a very important number. So I did the math, and if you calculate every military death from the beginning of our country, including the Revolutionary War, up to the Civil War, and then skip over that, and everything from the Civil War to World War I, and then you skip after World War II to everything to present, that number is 168,000 Americans dead in military activities, excluding those 3 wars, one of which was Americans on both sides, so it's like 680,000. It's a really high number. World War I was only 116,000, so it's actually not that crazy, and then 400,000 in World War II. That number is 168,000.
Yeah.
We are at 161,000 dead from one pandemic in 1 year. And I'm still seeing people post on social media, everywhere, oh, listen, it's all a hoax. It's not that bad. Healthy people survive. Yes.
Well,
healthy people survive. But a lot of people are not.
Healthy people are surviving right now.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about what, like, you could have the mild, I had a weird headache and some diarrhea, and it was the coronavirus, apparently. Like, you could have one of those cases. And
cancer 20 years from now.
Yeah, the part of the bravery of, like, the 9/11 first responders was the fact that not only were they risking their lives to go in at that exact moment where things could collapse on them, and there was, like, all the danger, the fires and the electrical problems that were going on at Ground Zero, but you knew that them going into all that soot and smoke and everything that goes along with it was going to have some sort of long-term effects. And we're not even, 20 years away from it, basically.
Yep.
And already a huge number of those people have died already.
Oh, by the way, we completely cut off funding for them.
Yeah.
Not paying them anything at all. So thanks, guys.
So never forget, I guess. I mean, but I just, to me, it just seems like we are making such stark decisions about what's okay and what's not okay when we don't know the full expanse of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Like,
and the argument I keep seeing, and I'm going to start from the beginning to say, you are right. The majority of people recover.
Yeah. Now.
I did the math based on the CDC numbers. There is a 3.3% mortality rate, which sounds very low. The problem is it's a 3% mortality rate of everyone who is a positive case.
Yeah.
Cases are at 5 million. You're like 3.3%, 160. That's not that much. If I extrapolate, because again, remember, no one is immune to this. This is a new disease.
Yeah.
It's like Columbus coming into the Americas and being like, we've never had smallpox before. Many people died. Now, smallpox killed a lot more people. But if I extrapolate this 3.3% mortality rate to the entire U.S. population, it's 11 million people dead.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to say collateral damage of 11 million, 12 million people is acceptable?
Yeah.
And what do we get in exchange for that? We get parties in the Hollywood Hills. We get going to stores without masks.
I mean, if we would have handled this right from the beginning, we would be
done.
Pretty free and clear of this whole thing right now.
New Zealand is wide open. It's a normal day.
They haven't had a
today.
case in 100 days.
Yeah.
They haven't had a case in 100 days. So, yes, maybe somebody out in the hills has a case of coronavirus and they're not getting tested or something like that. But I'm saying, like, they haven't found a case.
Well, no, you know why I know that's not true?
Why?
Because they're sending doctors out into the hills to test everybody.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying, like, hypothetically, is there one person out there who might have it and they don't know? Yes, I can't make promises here. The problem is that testing is so unreliable across the scope that you can't necessarily say this is the exact, this is exactly what North Korea is dealing with right now in terms of coronavirus, because who the fuck knows? Or Russia, like China, all these countries.
No
like, I don't trust all these numbers. I don't trust America's numbers right now, mostly because California's all fucked up.
Yeah.
But what is just confounding to me right now is that it's not getting better. It's just worse than it got slightly better for a small period of time.
All right, we're
and
done.
then went right back up, and people are acting like it's just gone away. And that's the problem, is that like elsewhere in the world, like, you can go into restaurants in Italy. You can live your life and like shop and do all the things that you want to be doing, but like we just can't get past this.
New Zealand
initial-
has not had a new case in 100 days. What are the major differences between New Zealand and the United States? There are 2 of them.
Well, I mean, they're an island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this, but taking numbers for numbers' sake,
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, they have a woman president.
Okay.
Whether or not you want to say that factors in it or not, but the woman president they have is
Is
also
she competent?
she is highly educated, very competent, history in government.
This seems like it's a vast difference from what we're dealing with right
Yes.
now. So
The other side of that equation is when it all started, she basically turned over control of the country to health experts and said, "I will do whatever this takes. You tell me what to do."
well, and I guess the thing that really upsets me the most about this whole thing is I've been playing by the rules. I've
Yeah.
been trying to do my best. I'm definitely more guarded than most about this whole thing, but I think that that's a reasonable place to be from, a reasonable.
No, we're the
Point
nerds.
of view.
We are the nerds doing all the work for the group project.
Yeah.
But we're still getting the F. It doesn't matter.
I mean, to me, it's just like, the biggest problem that we're dealing with is people are not understanding the science behind the mask and how it can drastically help spread the disease. And if everyone would just play along for a little bit and just wear the mask and stop making a big fucking deal out of it, we could get past this. Part 2 is the physical distancing thing.
Yeah.
Which I get it. It's annoying. I want to go home and see my family too.
Yeah.
I want to do a lot of
Flights are
things.
super cheap right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot, like, every single day I have a burning desire within me to go travel somewhere.
Las Vegas specifically.
Yeah, anywhere where I can go that is not LA at the moment. Not because I don't like LA, but just because every so often I just need to get away from wherever I am.
How about this? I only
just
feel
need to
safe
escape.
traveling around LA. I wouldn't go to Santa Monica or Venice or anything now.
No.
They basically think it's over out
But
there.
I mean, there are still people who are traveling into LA and doing, like walking down Hollywood Boulevard without their masks, and they're like, "I'm from Georgia" T-shirts.
Yeah.
And like, the Vegas fucking exploded, right? And that's because they made no kind of limits on who could come to Vegas. So everyone who was tired of being wherever they were, where coronavirus was shutting down their state,
Yeah.
people in Florida going like, "Hey, let's fly to Vegas for the weekend. It'll be great." And then they have fun in Vegas, and then everyone gets sick and just leaves a week
Yep.
in Nevada and then takes it to wherever they're going.
And before Vegas, it was Nashville because
Right.
Tennessee said, "We are not shutting down. Nashville is open for business."
Before that, it was Florida, and like, so on and so forth. And I just,
By the way, guys, it's an open book test, and you're failing. We continue to see what the example is, and you're just like, why don't we open? Look at them making money. But do you see what happens after that? Like,
you have to wait a little while to see. Well, the other part is too that like people make such like, I feel like the winner loser culture of the way that we report these sort of things
Yeah.
is so off the wall too. Like, I wasn't saying that, I think over the course of this whole pandemic, I've been giving Gavin Newsom pretty high remarks, or pretty high marks for how he's been treating this thing. But it's always you're only as good as your last game kind of thing,
Yep.
like, and I'm not saying that people. That's why I was saying, like, don't crown Ron DeSantis because the cases are low in Florida right now. And he did the same. He went out on TV and he's just like, they said they were going to be here a month ago. Where's the cases? And then immediately got hammered by cases.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's there's so much that's not known about this, and we have to. I'm really most of anything. I'm just angry at Trump that he couldn't even bother to try and be the national dad kind of figure that we need. And it's not that, like it's a male thing, but it's just like
the parent.
parent.
Be an adult in the room.
Be the one who's like, hey, this is really difficult, but we're all going to get through this together. America has never stopped. Anytime there has been something that has been put before Americans like this, we have succeeded. But we've only done it when we've gotten together and fought for it as one. And the fact that from the beginning this has felt like, like any political issue, like we're arguing about some abortion case or something like that, is just fucking sickening. Like, and it's like we need to just come together and get through this. Like, but nobody seems to want to do that, and that's hugely discouraging.
One other thing before we move on, it's an example you put forward, and I've been working it over. Basically, a human being can have 100 to 120 acquaintances. Yeah. And of that group, you have about 20 people that you are really close with and 50 that are regular friends. But let's just say and are acquainted with 100 people to round down for round number 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people maybe have 80 people in their lives.
Sure.
So, yeah.
But if you have 100, 3 of those people are going to die in this pandemic. Because unless we get a vaccine in the next 5 or 6 months, inevitably everyone will get it or will get a vaccine, one or the other. One of those two things is going to be the inevitability. 3 of those people who are going to die. And as I started to say earlier, I accept the healthy people will survive. Absolutely. We'll get it and we'll survive. The problem is if I get it and I survive, that's great. If I get it and I give it to someone who then takes it home to their grandparent and that person dies. Yeah. Or takes it home to their sick brother who's our age, but has a bad immune system, and they die.
But, I mean, like, that's not even a guarantee. Like, yes, the odds are lower that somebody who's in their 30s is going to die kind of thing, or their 20s is going to die from it. But, so, like, obviously in the minds of the people who are partying up in the Hollywood Hills right now, the idea is, like, I'm only dealing with 20-year-olds, so we're all going to be fine, even if one of us gets it. But that's not a 100%, children are now dying from it. Mm-hmm. That, people in their 20s and 30s are not immune from dying from it. It's just less likely.
In Georgia, teens and 20-year-olds are the fastest growing group.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if I think about it in terms of like the worst case scenario. So like if, you and Rachel and Roberto just died and I was all by myself and with nobody kind of thing. And I couldn't even imagine how I would move on from that moment. Like it would hit me so hard. I don't even know how I would handle it.
What you would do is you would take some of our dirty tissues and dissolve them in water and just start going around and spraying people in the face who weren't wearing, which I believe I suggested earlier this year as a penalty for not wearing your mask. Yeah. I still stand by that. I think that would be good. But one of the things I cut you off earlier because I want to talk about Gavin Newsom and why we can't even be sure that 5,160,000 is accurate at this point.
Right. I saw a tweet coming up not too long ago saying California or LA was at X amount of deaths.
So we're killing it. It's 5,000. We just hit 5,000.
Something like that. And it was just like 5,000, but we're not sure. Or the cases. I'm sorry, not deaths. Cases where it was just like we've just reached 200,000 or something like that. But we don't know if that's going to be accurate once the sub part of the headline was. Yeah. We don't know if these numbers are accurate. So we don't even really necessarily know the total scope of what's going on right now. So this next week is going to be very interesting in that regard. I figured it would be this week because at some point Gavin Newsom would have to say something in front of a camera. He can only help himself for so long.
Well, he's already sewn into the suit, so.
Maybe he's had trouble getting new suits sewn in or flown in during this week, so he didn't want to have the news conference. Can't be wearing last week's fashion. God forbid.
Got to call Alexander McQueen. They took care of
that. That's Steve McQueen is the what's the fashion designer?
You are asking the wrong person.
There's something.
I don't know if you noticed. I'm wearing the same black T-shirts that I've been wearing
from the Walmart
the
collection.
This is from the JCPenney collection, along with my JCPenney shorts and the same shoes I've been wearing for the last year. So, but the fashion guy.
the head of the Department of Health, is that the?
Yeah, she is the health director, the public health director.
For the state of California has stepped down.
Over the weekend. Yeah. Nice news dump. That was nice.
And basically what we know so far is that there was some sort of switch to the way that numbers were being reported from labs at a certain point. They want to say it was like 2 to 3 weeks ago, but there's also rumblings that it's way before that as well.
I suspect it was probably earlier.
So much so that, Garcetti was basically like, I don't know if any of my numbers are correct, so I can't really answer to that question, which is making me seem that this might have been a more serious problem from longer in scope than we're expecting.
Yeah, because by the way, Garcetti doesn't have numbers.
Yeah.
He gets the numbers from the state because everybody sends them to the state. They send them back to him, and then he assumes they're correct.
But basically, like, 2 of the biggest labs have not been reporting numbers to the central database or something. Something along these lines is happening.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of questions about how accurate any of the numbers that have been reported this entire time are from California. And, Newsom seems to be saying anytime he's asked, like, like I'm the person in charge and the buck stops here and all that sort of stuff. But he's also not taking – he was the guy who was out there every single day, like Cuomo, handling these press conferences, talking about everything California's doing, like, oh, the cases are up, cases are down, like, good news, bad news. He was out there doing the thing.
Been real quiet, though.
We were giving him a lot of credit for that. Yeah. But literally this week, it's like he just disappeared off the face of the earth, and I just don't get it. Like, your role when you become governor, you should be saying to yourself, at some point, I'm going to have to tell everybody something really bad. I'm going to have to deliver some bad news, and I can't just hide from it. Like Stephanie Rawlings Blake.
I was going to say, maybe he should run for mayor of Baltimore. That seems to be the rule of business out there.
But it's.
Well, my understanding is it's about security certificates reporting into the database.
Yeah.
Now, here is the scary bit of it, is that the labs are national labs, national companies, and the people who built California's database built other states' databases.
Yeah.
So is there a chance that other states also have expired certificates, haven't checked, don't know, and are just not getting results? That the computers throw in results, but they hit the gateway that says, hey, where's your certificate? Nope. Okay. And that's it. And they don't go enter. And that the numbers are far worse than we know. Because, by the way, if you tested positive, I don't know that you got your results back either. At what step do you get the result? Is it after it goes to the state and it's confirmed?
I don't see. That's the part I don't get, because, like,
I don't know.
I feel like people have been getting results this past week, right? Like,
but it's only a couple of
like
the labs.
From the lab to the person, right? Like,
and that's the thing for me. It's like, I don't know if it's been so, like, there's such a backlog, it's a backlog, or if the results never made it to the state. So you never, at Logic Gate, go to the state, we get the check back from the state that says, yeah, we confirmed it. Then you get the email. Maybe they're just sitting somewhere because they never got the check back from the database that said confirmed. And all these people are sitting there like, how did you get yours back in 2 days? I've been waiting 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because your result never made it to the state lab.
Yeah.
All of these things are possible. It seems like something Gavin Newsom would be great at addressing right now. What is the problem, and how long ranging is it?
Well, I think in my mind, the reason why he's not saying anything is because he doesn't want to say something that he doesn't know for sure isn't the truth.
Especially if it's worse. He doesn't want to say something worse than it actually is.
Well, also, he doesn't want to come out and say, like, oh, we found out that one lab and, Rancho Cucamonga is not, properly giving us results. Yeah. So the numbers are a little bit swayed because of that. Like,
turns out it's Dodger Stadium.
Well, he doesn't want to say it's just this one lab, no big deal, and then find out that literally the entire state is like, because then he just looks like a fucking idiot if he goes out there and says, it's just this one lab and it's everywhere. So I have to imagine that he's trying to cross his T's and dot his I's here and make sure that everything's truly as accurate as it can be right now. But
he's pulling a real Rawlings Blake, if you know what I mean. Just
escape into the county.
Just hiding out in Sacramento. So we'll continue to talk about this. I imagine that we're likely to get the confirmed figures. But again, my concern is we don't know anything about California now for sure.
Yeah.
And does this affect any other states? Does it affect the national numbers? What do we know? And is there a chance that Florida, who, by the way, again, we've talked about before, hit the total number that South Korea hit the entire time in one day?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that's just not an accurate number and it was way higher than it actually was?
Yeah.
We no idea.
Right.
Because, by the way, as much
to be continued.
As much as we give a lot of shit to Gavin Newsom, he'll come forward eventually and claim it. Ron DeSantis absolutely will not. We will never know. It'll be the next governor who talks about how the numbers were so wrong.
Yeah.
So,
or just blame it on a hurricane or something. Like, we had it under control, and then the hurricane threw it all around. The coronavirus is everywhere now.
Yeah, the numbers were up in the cloud. They keep telling me they're up in the cloud, but then the hurricane came in and it just screwed
The
all the
clouds
numbers up.
dissipated.
Well, and now we get to do, which is really my favorite thing about this episode thus far. Because we've run so long, let's lightning round the Trump news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing important coming from the president of the United States anymore.
Unfortunately, I would say that that's not true, but it actually is not too far off base, I don't think. Because really the question is, will anything he's doing actually stick?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, so
I love the big sigh right before you get started. Well, all right, Denzel, come on, let's hear it.
So Trump made 4 executive orders this past weekend to relate to the ever-growing divide between the Democrats and the Republicans on the Hill on the next round of coronavirus money to be dispersed out to people. Mostly, the argument was over the expanded unemployment, the $600 that the American people had been getting. Trump's executive order will take that down to $400, which there's a lot of questions about how that money happens and how it's dispersed or when it will be available or any of that sort of stuff. But
Who's paying it?
Who's paying it? Because I don't know if you know how government works, but the Congress determines how money is spent. So,
Well, also 25%'s got to come from the states.
Yeah.
who we're not talked to at all.
Yeah,
about
we're
having
not
to pay
prepared to pay 25% of that bill. The other part was the moratorium on evictions, which is less of a moratorium and more of a, hey guys, come on, be cool about it. And then there's he was talking about payroll tax, not eliminating it, but sort of deferring the cost.
Yeah, it's a moratorium on the payroll tax.
Basically, if Rob makes if $20 of Rob's check goes to Social Security right now, he won't have to pay that on every check. Like, it won't come out of every check. But
we want every American child
right now. It won't come out right now.
Every single dollar of that will eventually have to be paid later after this whole thing is wrapped up.
So a fun thing for me, because I am still working right now.
Yeah.
Great, extra few bucks now. And then right around Christmas time, when, I need more money for Christmas gifts, is likely the time that it'll be like, by the way,
did you know that Social Security for half a year costs you about $700? Weird. Give us the money.
Yes. Or they'll just, honestly, take it out of my tax return next year, because I don't get those anyway. So just go ahead. Tell me I owe it in the tax return. So I'll be like, all right, then my typical tax return is $650. I don't get that anyway. You're going to take that.
To be fair, the only thing about this any of these executive orders, which seem to be good for most people, is that federal student loan deferral is, being extended by this. But that seems to be the only thing that really has the legs. Because I don't know if you know about this Trump guy, but he doesn't plan very well.
No.
Like, so he just sort of says it's going to be $400, and the questions start raising of like, well, how does that get paid? And then like some of it might be FEMA and some of it's coming from the states, but there's not a roadmap from how we get from where we are right now to where we need to be. And in the meantime, people who have been holding on for dear life on their $600 a week, which is, by the way, $15 an hour, 40 hours a week. So this is what we've been pushing for as like a reasonable amount of money that someone can live off of. Somebody who's making more than $600 a week and is not working right now is surviving off of this. Mm-hmm. People who are making less and are, living a better life, they should be making this much at any job in America.
Yeah.
Especially if you live in
I
California
really wish,
or New York or any. Florida,
if only there was
anywhere.
a presidential candidate calling for raising the minimum wage to match buying
Weird.
power. Yeah. RobChickforPresident.com.
Well, there was also the Bernie plan too, which we didn't get into here. It hasn't really gotten as popular as I think Rob would like it to be. But basically, any billionaire who has made more than $1 billion since the pandemic started has to give 60% of it up to help pay for the costs.
I'm only supporting that if he calls it the pandemic penalty. That's what I wanted to be called.
But I mean, it's basically just like, stealing a bunch of Bezos's money, which he's just stealing from the people that work for him. So
you are profiteering off tragedy right now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take that money and we're going to give it back to people.
I mean, the argument of how much is somebody profiteering off of a business designed around internet commerce before anyone else was. Like, anyone could have prepared themselves for an internet-based world.
This is why we need Elizabeth Warren as VP, so she's in charge of the Senate. That's what I really want. So what's going to happen with the stimulus? Who knows? This really started, the reality of it is, the Democrats and the Republicans seemed very far apart. Trump chose a position that was a small give for the Republicans and a big give for the Democrats and said, if you don't come to an agreement, this is what I'm going to do, to basically force the Democrats to give a lot of ground, something that was a little better than what Trump was offering. But then they didn't. And Trump was forced to be like, okay, well, I threatened this, so now I'm going to do it.
To me, in my mind, it's not really so much a Democrat-Republican issue. There's certainly a level of McConnell wanted that number to be as low as possible.
Yeah.
Schumer wants it to be as high as possible. We're going to try and meet somewhere in the middle, and the jockeying over how much that is going to be based off of how well these two sides can negotiate. But the other problem is that within the Republican caucus specifically, you have people who are now all of a sudden really worried about the national debt.
All of a sudden.
So like Ted
Weird.
Cruz and stuff like that, who was totally fine with giving $1.9 trillion last year to help
the
rich
top
people.
1% of 1%.
Yeah. He is now astounded that we would spend $2 trillion to help bail out people who are impacted by a pandemic.
Yeah, by the way,
I mean,
multi-millionaires telling you can't survive.
Ted Cruz makes $3,000 a week.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's in session or not, he's making $3,000 a week. So, I don't make $3,000 a week most weeks.
I mean, listen, citizens of Texas, if you don't make that, you can easily find out Ted Cruz's address and go discuss with him on his front lawn.
Have a candlelight vigil in his front lawn.
Yeah. I would just really love to see 100, 200, 300 people show up and be like, hey, Ted, so Ted Cruz, you make $3,000 a week. You're trying to keep me from making $600 a week.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is $15 an hour with taxes taken out. So explain. I don't know.
I'm just so the Republicans have to figure out whether or not they want to be the party that helps people get through this, or whether or not they want to be the party that cuts the response to pandemic-related.
I've got a spoiler alert for you, Corey.
Well, I know which way they're going to go,
want to be the people who help.
But I'm saying, like, normally we wouldn't have to say this is going to be bad for them in an election year, but it's an election year, and a lot of these people have to think about like getting reelected. So I wonder how much the Republicans are misreading the room here, because it's a lot of people who are unemployed right now. I think the thing that this stimulus money is impacting 20 million Americans right now. It doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it's a lot of people. And it's a lot of people who are literally just trying to figure out how to keep their life going until they can see the other side of this.
Yes. Because, by the way, we still can't see the other side.
Yeah.
Don't know at all. And if you're wondering how out of touch someone might be, I'll remind you, there was once a ruler who said, oh, they don't have bread? Well, why don't they eat cake? And I think that the Republicans of today are bordering on
the let them eat cake
Marie Antoinette levels of being out of touch with reality. Just like, well, wait, why don't they go to their dad and ask for, like, I don't know, a few $100,000 loan to get them through this rough time? I don't understand. Yeah.
Why didn't they put in for PPP protection?
Yeah.
Well, you see, I'm only one man. I work at a Denny's.
And just we mentioned the we don't know where the other side is.
Yeah.
And I just feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that 6 months ago today was Trump's infamous speech where he said it's all going to work out fine. It'll get warm in April or something, and it'll disappear. It'll be like a miracle.
Yeah.
And it was 90 today in LA.
Yeah.
I sweat so much coming here. Not getting rid of it.
Yeah. The heat is definitely not getting rid of it.
Didn't disappear like a miracle.
This is part of the maybe you shouldn't put out statements that you don't know are factually accurate, because then it just comes back.
Trump should not speak from the cuff at all, because nothing good. I mean, listen, if they write the speech for him, he can't actually speak the words that they write.
Right.
Don't speak from the cuff at all.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But
Well, I think we have an example of him not being able to speak off the script.
yeah,
that somebody
I
writes
get
for him,
it.
right?
This is not so much news, but it's just funny. And I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see this. This is, of course, the president talking about his love
of America.
No, he set aside some additional land for the national parks.
Yeah.
Acting, by the way, as if he was Teddy Roosevelt, creating these huge swaths of country, and
Right.
apparently he added like a few hundred acres to the national park. But this is him speaking about that incident.
We want every American child to have access to pristine outdoor spaces. When young Americans experience the breathtaking beauty of the Grand Canyon, when their eyes widen in amazement as Old Faithful bursts into the sky, when they gaze upon Yosemites, towering sequoias, their love of country grows stronger, and they know that every American has truly a duty to preserve this wondrous inheritance.
My love of country has definitely grown stronger.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. There's some sort of chemistry in the air when he says Yosemites.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It makes me love America so much more than I did right before it happened.
Well, I'll tell you, it upsets me because I thought I really knew the national park system. But
Yeah.
this is a park I am not aware of, and I really want to go visit Yosemite
It's in
National Park.
California. You
Is
should-
it?
Yeah.
Ah, man, we got to go check out Yosemite National Park.
You've never heard of the sequoias?
I mean, I know the sequoias, but I've never heard of this particular park. I don't.
Well, I mean, so there's a little bit of controversy about this.
Okay.
Because
All right. Yeah.
the locals, they have their own dialect and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, so they pronounce it a little bit different. It's Yosemite.
Oh, by locals you mean Americans?
Yeah,
all
people
other
who live-
Americans.
Yeah, people
Okay.
people who didn't grow up in Queens. That's
Okay, yeah.
exactly.
I was
That's
gonna
exactly
say-
how they try and pronounce it.
You're of
People
course
who grew up in Queens and didn't have a second grade education. Those are the people.
you're aware, of course, of the very infamous Looney Tunes character Yosemite Sam.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, how can it's not as if there aren't 1,000 references to this that you could pull from. And we discussed this before the show. I think it's both of our favorite parts is the fact that he goes back. He goes back to say it a second time, and then basically I see it inside his head. Him saying like, "No, you were right the first time," and then just
Well, he says Yosemite, and then he says Yoseminites.
"Oh, is that what it is?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost like he's. For a minute there, I think he maybe saw it like anti-Semitic or something, or like Semitic.
He's like, "Ooh, watch that word. I know that
He's
word."
like, wait a minute, hold on, that's not the one. This is not the right speech. Get out of here.
People have called me that before. I know that term. Wait. Oh no. Okay. Yosemite. Okay. Got it. Yeah. By the way, just referring to my cartoon president, Trump is the president. Yes, we had an election. We elected him president. That's it. That's the guy leading us through the pandemic.
I just can't could you imagine if in an alternate if you remember Dan Quayle misspelled potato and it ended his career?
Yeah.
It's just like one day.
Like this guy can't be vice president. What
One
if he's
day Dan
president?
Quayle was vice president. The next day he was like working at a fucking Denny's somewhere. Like it was over. He might as well have been on the moon. Like he was.
By the way,
And you know what? Honest to God, a spelling error that I bet you a lot of people would make and not even think twice about it.
a spelling error that a lot of people made fun of him for, but then spell potato.
Yeah.
Oh, and he wrote it on the board. He put, I think it was chalk or it was like a whiteboard, and he put down the marker and he stopped and he turned and looked at it and he was like, I know that's wrong, but I've come too far now. The chalk's already down. And then he turned around and went about his business.
Yeah.
And it's just like, at least he had the forethought to be like, shit, that's definitely wrong. Yeah, I screwed that
But I
one
mean,
up.
if he could have just looked at it, he's just like, wait a minute, what did I do? Then people would have been like, oh, okay, so he recognized.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit of
he-
Trump in him. Like, I'm not going to apologize.
People will be the documentary on Dan Quayle's fall from grace for misspelling potato. Like it's incredible, and the fact that could you imagine if if the Gore versus Bush election, like if Bush had just sort of been like, I've been all over this country, I've been Miami. It's just like,
That way?
where?
But Howard Dean.
Saddle.
Howard Dean ran for president. Fell out of the top spot because he got so excited about winning New Hampshire that he went, Yahoo! At the end of his speech. And we're like, this guy is unstable. We cannot have him as president. How much
He
is
can't
Howard
be
Dean
president.
singing at home like these motherfuckers?
He can't be president, but he can be the head of the DNC for like a decade.
Well, Democrats, yeah, so we trust him with the organization, not just as the head of it. Walter Mondale rode in a tank, looked very much like a badass, but then at the end of the ride, popped his head out and looked very much like a woodchuck coming out of the ground with a helmet. Automatically, we're like, I don't like that guy. Ronnie looks like a leader. This guy doesn't look like a leader. And now we got a guy who can't tie his own tie without it being like 2 feet too long. What has happened to this country?
I mean, we could get into it, but it would take a while.
Yeah, I think we've already gone.
We're already pushing a little bit.
We've gone pretty long today already. So.
The last little bit here you had.
Another side note for those who may be following along today. The executive's orders, the 4 of them, separate ones signed today, were numbers 172 through 175. And at this point in his administration, he has signed 175 executive orders. And this is how I walked Corey through it earlier.
Yeah.
If you remember, he ran talking about how Obama was trying to be a dictator, a king, and ruling by executive order.
Yeah.
And at this point in his administration, Obama had signed 131 executive orders.
Yeah.
And I found a really cool clip, and I wish I could have found like the clip itself, but it was really just talking heads talking about the clip of not Harry Reid, Wisconsin, Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Saying like, listen, he's using force against protesters. He's trying to quash dissent. He's using executive orders to get things done. He is in all ways a dictator. And yeah.
About that.
I'll just remind you, Trump used tear gas and federal troops to clear a plaza to walk across and hold up a Bible, which he does not believe in at all, for a photo op. Before his 172nd through 5th executive orders. And then Bush.
And I mean, granted, most of these executive orders have just been getting rid of what Obama did.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of, and the problem is that he did like Executive Order 72, but he misspelled something.
We're probably going to have a similar conversation if Joe Biden gets elected, because he'll just end up putting all those executive orders back.
When he's a real legislator, and I think he's just going to do number 1 is just like, anything
just
with this signature on it, and he'll copy and paste the signature, no longer good law. And then we'll cover it all in one, and we'll get out of the way. But so he attacked him about executive orders. We've now exceeded executive orders, which led me down a rabbit hole, because I was like, there was one other big issue, and it wasn't being born in America. That was during Obama's run, not his own. It was how much Obama.
That was Trump's doing too. So.
Yeah, is how much Obama golfed, and I was like, I wonder, somebody has had to do this math, right? Turns out, at this point in his administration, Trump has golfed 2.5 times more hours, not days, because, by the way, Obama would sneak away for a 9-hole set in the afternoon and go back to work.
Yeah.
Trump flies to Mar-a-Lago for a weekend of golf and then comes back. So he was talking about how he's not even available when we need him. When Obama was in Virginia, 20 minutes away doing the back 9 somewhere, and he's done 2.5 times more hours of golf.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just let that resonate with you.
That's something.
Rob doesn't even play golf. If you're thinking about a president, if you're tired of this and you want your presidents not playing golf, Rob won't do it. He doesn't even have clubs. How can he do it?
I don't play any sports.
He'd have to rent clubs from the club that he goes to. Like, that's how low. Maybe somebody would gift him some clubs.
Listen, I'm not trying.
Maybe the NRA through Alexander McQueen will give you some clubs.
I am not taking your corporate clubs, Corey. No. But what I do, it's very infamous, I suppose. I watch movies, but as we've talked about before, I can watch a movie while doing other things. Yeah. So I can govern while watching.
Don't worry. He can watch Palm Springs and read his daily briefing at the same time. It's not going to affect him.
He's seen me do it.
Yeah.
Clearly it's been out there. Then the only other hobby I have is Fallout 4. And I mean, frankly, I don't know that by January 2020, we're not going to have some sort of nuclear fallout situation. So really, I consider that prep for the job that may be in the future.
I would worry about one thing falling down if you went into the Oval Office.
What's that?
OhTheAnthem.com. Corey to OhTheAnthem.com. Oh, the Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's the number again?
443-219-7595. And you can find me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at LegendsDB5 on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Until that's banned from the country. So enjoy it now, you motherfuckers.
Too much news.
I have the review for Palm Springs up right now. If you are one of those people who always said, I want to make a movie and have it sell big at Sundance, Palm Springs sold for more money than any other film in the history of Sundance, and we are not talking about it the same way we talked about Reservoir Dogs or, any of the other big Sundance favorites. So go check that out, because I think it's enlightening for both people who enjoyed the movie and for people in the industry who are looking to learn something from it.
Do you have a preview of anything else coming up?
Not right away, but I'm going to see something before Thursday and release a video of that. The problem is that, at what point do I, so I want to try and keep it with new things, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do so many of the classic reviews, because then I have to make a decision as to what review.
Yeah, he doesn't want to pull a Rob and just start doing Quibi shows.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the I don't want to, I feel like the next one says something about me as a person. So if I do Josie and the Pussycats, are everyone going to be like, what the hell is wrong with Corey?
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, so yeah, you can find more of me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. Of course, you can check out robertncheek.com, where you can find links to the YouTube channel, where I have the Everyman movie review, 2 episodes a week, no matter what, Thursday and one day in between. I am realizing as I sit here now, I don't think the Sunday episode went up, so that'll go up tonight. So as you're listening to this, it's actually live, unless you're watching us live right now. I wrapped up on some final Quibi shows, the overall platform review, I suppose, and then I'm moving on. Now I have 7,500 coming up. I have Palm Springs coming up, and I think this is the interesting thing about our 2 review sets, just to bring Corey back in here for a second, because you are definitely going to be talking about the sale at Sundance. I saw several moments in there where I'm like, I know Corey commented about that in his review. Because it's like the filmmaking aspect of it. There's one point where they're shooting into a camera to get the third character, and I was just like, I don't even know how they did this. I don't know if you talked about it.
I didn't, but
okay.
That's a good point. I think it's what I'm trying to aim my filter at more is somebody who wants to make movies and is watching movies, and they're saying to themselves, how does this happen? So something like that is good for me to know, because then I can put it in the future. And I don't want to get too inside baseball, because I feel like people don't know the basics of how it works, and it's difficult to explain. So how they do a dolly crane here?
I had an awkward feeling during the scene, and I realized it was because one of the people who looks like they're sitting there was actually shot in a mirror, and they're sitting next to camera. And I'm like, so everything feels weird because they're in between these 2 people, but there's nothing really in between them. And it was anyway. So Corey does the artistic aspects of it, what we might call the coastal elites reviews, and I do the, hey, that was a good movie. You should go see it.
If you think it's funny, you should go see it.
It's more the flyover country review. But you can find that on YouTube, as well as links to the books, which are available on Amazon.
Buy Rob's books.
Thank you. And of course, just a quick plug, RobCheekForPresident.com, at RobCheek for RobCheek4Prez, P-R-E-S, on all your social media. You can find links to all the stuff we're doing with the campaign and building out that website. Almost every single day, new stuff is going up there, so you can find out more of the platform there.
Excelsior.
All
right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
Well, we've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the Oh the Anthem podcast, part of the Oh the Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
And seriously, the ground crew should take the L for that one. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say about it. The Nationals should have lost that game.
If that's going to be
an official game. It's an official game as soon as it gets past 5.5. I don't understand why we're not.
If that's the rule, the whole country needs to take an L for last November 2016. All right,
we got the tarp wrong on that one. That's
really
sure.
didn't nail the tarp on that one.